Okay, and we're live, and I believe we're streaming to YouTube tonight for the first time. So here we go. Hello, I'm Howard Mann, creator of Conscious Shifting, and welcome to Conscious Shifting. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer and warning. Conscious shifting and all known side effects will improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while creating the ideal environment for spiritual awakening, helping you live the life of your dreams, and influencing the world in a positive way. All right. The best way to ask a question is to put a capital Q in front of it. It makes it easier for me to see them as the comments scroll by. And we'll start with the question of the week, which is, if we are spirit, then why are we in human form? Excellent question. So, a natural result of consciousness is expression of consciousness. And physical existence is a expansion of conscious energy or spirit. For consciousness to express itself requires a means of doing so. Spirit is expressing itself through physical existence. A good metaphor would be that in order for a musician to create music, to express their self musically, there must be the musician, there must be the musical instrument, and there must be a physical realm capable of sound waves. Only then will there be music. So that's why we're here. We're here to express our spiritual self while in human form. That's also called spiritual mastery. Excellent question. Thank you for that. And with that, let's see who we have in here so far. I see Tina. Tina, thank you, and you are quite welcome. I see Richard and Dwayne and Kim. All right, awesome. Now we should be, I'll have to post comments or questions, try to put them with a capital Q. We're starting to stream to YouTube as well. So I should see both on the screen, but I'll post them up on the screen so that you guys know which questions I'm answering. Hi, Vidya. Hi, Ray. How you doing? All right, so let's get started. Tonight's topic is the subconscious mind simplified. So, did you know that you have an autopilot? And yes, your subconscious mind is basically your autopilot. In fact, most people, nearly all of the time, are running on autopilot. And while people do almost everything with the subconscious mind, they're also, in general, completely oblivious to it. Hence the term subconscious mind. Because while it does most of the information processing, people typically have little to no awareness of it. Isn't that interesting? Indeed, Dwayne. Indeed. So when I use the term subconscious, I'm referring to memories rather than the conscious part of the mind that does the thinking. Although they actually work simultaneously. So you have both going on at the same time, but most people spend most of their time paying attention to what the subconscious mind is talking about, even though there's a lot that it does without their knowing it. It's kind of a weird thing. There's different levels to this, or maybe an easier way to understand it is there's different levels of awareness. So there's all this stuff that the subconscious is doing, and it's at the same time you have your conscious mind, but most people really are not at least 100% in their conscious mind, rarely if ever, in fact. Most people. So The conscious mind is the part of the mind that has the potential to be present in this moment. I said different levels of awareness because the conscious mind can be focused on subconscious thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions come from the subconscious. So we can be paying attention to those, which means that we're basically paying attention to what the subconscious mind is throwing up at us. Not all that it's doing, but we're paying attention specifically to the thoughts and emotions. And that's different than being present in this moment and aware of everything that's going on. And only the conscious mind can do that. So it has the potential, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that part of the mind is 100% present all the time. In fact, like I said, for most people, it rarely is. So, for example, how many times have you been driving down the freeway, talking with someone, or singing along with the radio, and then you realize that you've driven miles and miles and miles with no recollection of it at all? Who was driving the car? The fact that you don't recall it means you weren't really present. So who was driving the car? Your subconscious mind, your autopilot was. Another example would be, how many times have you been doing a task that you've done far too many times to count, and then suddenly realize that you've completed the task and yet you have no memory of doing it? It's like you weren't there. It's as if you passed through some kind of a time warp. And that's because you were daydreaming while you were on autopilot. Your autopilot actually completed the task. Hi, Susan. So anyway, Tina, oh my gosh. So it's happened. You know what I'm talking about. But when you stop and really think about that, that's a little strange, to say the least, isn't it? That you're living your life, but you're not really present for the living of your life, that you're just doing these things on autopilot. That's something to think about, isn't it? And the fact that most people do this most of the time explains a hell of a lot about what's going on in the world. Because what's in the subconscious mind? We're going to get into that. But basically, they're memories, ways you've learned to do things, ways you've learned to react to things. So all this stuff you see going on in the world, for the most part, is just emotional trauma being projected out onto the world stage by the subconscious. And people just are there along for the ride without really being conscious of what's going on. And that's really the point of this live, is to call attention to it. And in future lives, we'll talk about what you can do once you're aware of it. But it starts with awareness. You have to be aware that it's going on before you can do anything about it. All right. So conditioning. Exactly. So a lot of people then would ask, well, I'm not sure I understand exactly why you even need a subconscious mind. And the thing is that the subconscious mind is actually very important. You wouldn't be able to function without it. But the subconscious mind is like a computer. No one's in there. It doesn't think. It simply runs programs. Now, I said that the subconscious throws thoughts and emotions up, but those are memories. They're not lifetime analysis. There's a difference. They're just memories. Things that have been stored, picked up along the way somewhere. Random, and the emotions get involved, and there's some communication that goes on between them, and it can generate some additional thoughts, but it's not really the same thing as being fully present in the now. So the subconscious mind will run whatever programs, and that's what they are. They're programs, memories, ways you've learned to do things, programs, just like a computer has programs. Subconscious mind has programs, and they're in the memory banks. But because it doesn't think, it's very fast. It's reactionary. It's like a reflex, and that's important. It's very important. Just like a computer, though, when a specific stimulus is present, the subconscious mind quickly responds with a specific program. On a computer, you push a button, and the computer will run a program that it associates with that button. And just like a computer, because the subconscious mind doesn't think, because it only runs previously recorded programs, it's capable of processing large amounts of information very quickly. Okay, let's see what we got here. Susan says, kind of scary to think about that. I've done that before too. Yes, when you really start thinking about this, it it has a way of jarring your awareness to a whole new level. Hi Sherry, how you doing? Dwayne says, this is how I'm different. I'm aware. I know my purpose. That's a good thing to know. It's a very good thing to know. Nikki. As someone fully invested in connecting to the creator, sometimes I feel like I'm not connected to myself. As I mentioned, I'm fighting a high level spiritual battle, and the more I give my ego, the more I am invested in the programming of the spirit. I'm sharing to remind people that when you shift your gear, you run the program of the collective and complete your soul contract. Yeah, you're talking about stuff that kind of gets us going down other paths. But I will say this, since you've brought that up, and I wasn't even going to really talk about this tonight, but it's probably something that we're going to be discussing here because I seem to be noticing it in people's lives, and I've started experiencing, or at least being aware of it myself. And there's a really weird thing going on with the energy on the planet right now. People are having difficulties. We've talked about the dark night of the soul, and that is part of this. But at this specific moment, there's some really weird, funky energy. And so just be careful what you pay attention to, because some of it's quite negative and it will lead you down a dark path. And it's hard to get away from it because it's been going on for years now in politics, and the media is almost 724 on the negative. I don't even watch the news for that very reason. But it's like people are being bombarded with this, and then with all this other stuff that's been going on, the wars and pandemics and all this kind of stuff. And now, even though we're kind of rounding the corner of all of that, it's like people are being challenged, and it's very easy to get confused and affected by this negative stuff, and start moving down that path. So be very, very, very careful to hold your spiritual center. And so thanks for bringing that up, because it's just really strange times right now. We'll talk about that in some detail later on, but again, since you brought that up, I thought I'd throw that out there. It's been on my mind. Yeah, and I know a lot of people talk about Mercury retrograde. What's going on is even bigger. I mean, I'm not saying that I may have nothing to do with anything, but there's something really strange, and we're in the middle of a global dark night of the soul, which is a very rare event. But and we'll get into that at another time. But just recently here, the there's something a little different element to it. So just beware of what you pay attention to, and not to be distracted and put down the wrong path. We are being challenged, and the answer, as always, is to, as Dwayne says, the media is monstrous, and the challenge is to always hold your spiritual center. So hang tough, and you'll be fine. But if not, I mean, you're going to see a lot of people go sideways and downward real fast here, by not doing that. That's why I took the opportunity to bring it up. It's concerning. You'll be okay, as long as you're aware of what's going on, and you hold your spiritual center. That's the important thing to remember. So back to the subconscious mind, which for some reason I lost this. We'll put that back up. So it's kind of like a computer. You push a button on a computer, and the computer associates that button with the program, and it runs that program. Your subconscious mind, when there's a specific stimulus, whatever the subconscious mind associates with that, it starts doing. And so that's how you're able to complete these tasks. That's where a lot of these thoughts and emotions come from. That explains a lot about the subconscious mind, if you just think about it in those terms. There's no one in there. It's not thinking. It's just associating this stimulus with this program. That's all. And so it's important, though, because because the subconscious is only running programs, and it's not thinking, there's no live analysis. It doesn't get bogged down in any of that. So it can process, just like a computer, huge amounts of information very quickly. And there are things in life, which we will talk about briefly here, where that's necessary. So that's why you have a subconscious mind. Large programs and multiple programs are a breeze for the subconscious mind, but would bog down the conscious mind. The subconscious does all of this without you even having to focus on it. That's why I call it an autopilot. This allows you to do more than one thing at a time. You can, for example, walk and swing your arms and chew gum and take in the scenery, all while you're consciously pondering life. You wouldn't be able to do that without a subconscious. So how do these programs get into your subconscious mind? Well, some are hardwired in. They're basically instinct, an evolutionary trait that your body just does on its own. Examples would be withdrawing from pain, or jumping back when you're startled. You also likely have mental inclinations left over from previous incarnations. But these only explain some of your mental leanings. The rest are learned in this lifetime, beginning in the womb. As a baby, in the womb, that is, you didn't just receive nutrients and oxygens from your mother. You also received her thoughts and emotions. As a baby in the womb, you shared all the same chemicals and hormones and information with your mom. If she was stressed, you were stressed. Whatever she was experiencing, you were too. And this affected you mentally and physically. You were downloading all kinds of information while in the womb, all kinds of it. My wife and Kim and I had 4 sons. We have 4 sons. And while Kim was pregnant, I would talk to each one of them. And immediately upon birth, they knew who I was. When I would speak, they would react. They'd been listening to me for 9 months. They knew who I was. And babies are aware of what's going on inside and outside mom. And all this stuff helps prepare them for the world they're about to enter. After we're born, we continue with this downloading. Children up until about age 6 are information sponges. They absorb everything without question directly into their subconscious. They're like little learning machines. Now, as we age, our programs become more habitual in nature. So, as we learn, we create more programs. But we already have programs in place, and these programs determine how we perceive the world and others. So you see where that information comes in that we've already downloaded? That's how we learn to perceive the world. So even the programs that we start creating on our own, once we start developing a conscious, are only perceived through the lenses of the programs that we already have. So current programs influence future programs. Kim says that many are handed down through generations, and they are. They are. They really are. Dwayne, a lot of people don't do the self work and heal when they go through trauma, hurt, or pain. No, some people have no idea how, which is some of the stuff we get into here. And for that very reason. 4 kids are heroes. I don't know how we did it. I mean, we just did it. We just did it. That's all I can say. Now that's an interesting comment, Susan. Oop, my comments are jumping. The older I get, I put that up there, and the older I get, I am being more like my mom. So that's why, because you have a lot of her programs downloaded into your subconscious. And even though youngsters tend to be a little bit rebellious, over time, we start to see the world and notice that some of the things that we believe about the world are true or are confirmation. And so then it has the appearance that we're becoming more like our parents. What's happening is through life, you're in many cases becoming more wise. And some of that wisdom you were given at a young age, you just didn't necessarily believe it. But with life, you have the experience to back it up. And so it's confirmation. But also, I would say that people tend, and they won't know that they're doing it most of the time. Like you'll hear people say, "You're just like your father. You're just like your mother," and they're like, "Wow, I'm nothing like them." You know, they don't get it, but everybody around sees it because it's being done subconsciously. Hi, Katja. Hi, Amy. How you doing? That's awesome. Tina says, my mom passed in 06. I was talking to her last night, telling her how I've become her. That's cool that you're having that conversation. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. So, little information sponges. They just download everything without questioning it straight into the subconscious. So this is where the majority of your programs come from, is in the womb, and then the first 6 years of your life. And then you continue after that, but they're kind of tainted because you're seeing them through the lenses, so to speak, of your previous programs. Now, throughout life, you'll continue to add programs to your memory banks. This never really stops. Traumatic experiences tend to result in immediate downloads, whereas most are more habitual in nature. In other words, the more you do something, it becomes more like a habit. You're basically programming yourself. So take walking, for example. People in general don't really think about it much. It's just something that we do, and usually while we're doing other things at the same time. But imagine if every time you walked or every time you wanted to walk, it was like you'd never done it before. What if you had to learn from scratch each time, coordinating all those muscles and balance and all the adjustments necessary for movement without falling? It involves so much information processing that walking would be sloppy and full of mistakes. Watch a child learning to walk. What if you were permanently in that situation? How much would you get done? How would it affect everything that you do? How would it change your life? It would be huge. Fortunately, you don't have to spend your life stumbling around. Your subconscious mind can handle all of the information necessary for walking in the form of a walking program. And this is the function of the subconscious. Your subconscious allows you to be much more efficient and to do things more safely. The more you do something, the better you get at it. So first, you program the basic task into your subconscious. Next, you program upgrades to the task. And then you perform the task without much thought. And this is how most people operate most of the time. Now, here's what I wanted to bring up about all of this. What if you have corrupted programs? What if the walking program, for example, had you walking out into traffic and into trees or off of cliffs? Think about that one. Well, guess what? Most of your programs are corrupted. Not in the sense that it's going to be a total disaster and you're going to go off of a cliff. Some of them, yes, but most of them, it's not that drastic. But they don't align with your desires. Most of them you had no say-so in. They were downloaded without your knowledge and without your consent. And at a very tender age, you downloaded most of your programs from your parents, and the rest were from other influentials in your life. But don't start blaming other people for your programs. For starters, it won't do any good. It'll only create more bad programming. You've already got plenty of that. And besides, they got their programming the same way. We've all been duped. All of us. Before we ever saw it coming. So we got to really cut people slack. People do the best that they can with what they know. And once they know better, they'll do better. Everybody's like that. So that's one of the reasons why it's not very productive to judge. You know, you don't look at people as less because they don't know any better. It would be the equivalent of picking on somebody that's mentally impaired. That's the way you kind of have to see it. They just simply don't know any better. And that's why they behave the way they do. And when they do know better, they will do better. Just like you. And so you have to give people their space. And, you know, I'm not saying that everything everybody does, you should participate in or that you should condone it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not making excuses for destructive behavior. I'm just simply saying that you can see it from a higher perspective and without judging it and just saying, well, that's where they are. What was it, Forrest Gump? People, stupid is as stupid does. There's another way of saying it. It's like people are going to do what they know. Jesus said that a fruit will be known by the fruit, or a tree will be known by the fruit that it bears. Basically the same thing, Mind control on a big scale, global scale, exactly. And there's people that use that to their advantage. But that's what they know. They're they got a lot of corrupted stuff. So it doesn't do any good to blame other people because they're in the same boat. We've all been duped. And some of these programs could easily be thousands of years old. How far back do you want to go? And what would be the point? Does it really matter that, your ancestors, thousands of years ago, had this program downloaded and it's been handed down from generation to generation? I mean, does that really help? No. The point is that you have it. And then that you need to do something about it if it's a corrupted program. That's the point. It doesn't matter when and where you got it. It really doesn't. No bearing on it whatsoever. I say that just to illustrate the point that that's how old some of this stuff could be. And it doesn't do any good to blame. I mean, you're either going to heal or you're not. But if you're going to, you got to work on yourself. It's an inside job. You pointing the finger isn't going to get it done. So even the programming that you did have a say-so in was done through the perception of previous programming. That's the second thing to understand about this. You've got them. A lot of them are corrupted. And even the ones that you do have some say-so over, they're corrupted too because they're tainted by the ones you already have. So there's a lot to go in and clean up. And that's another way of looking at spiritual awakening or enlightenment, however you want to see it, is undoing all this unnecessary, hurtful, destructive, false belief stuff. And, cleaning it up, getting rid of the corrupted program so everything runs smooth, efficiently, and clearly. And we haven't even got into, well, briefly, I think we mentioned it, but we haven't really got into pop culture and the media, which interestingly, media content is referred to as programming. Have you ever noticed that? Like, this includes the so-called news. They actually call it programming. Which is I find funny because it is. That's exactly what it is. It's programming. And I don't mean scheduling of events on the television channel at a certain time. I literally mean subconscious programming. That's exactly what I mean. I'm not mixing those words up. I intentionally said that. I just think it's funny that they call it programming because that's exactly what it is. And if you pay too much attention to the stuff, or you just absorb it, or you think that you're getting the truth, you're really being deceived. You really are. But again, it doesn't matter from whom or when you got your programming. The point is that you have subconscious programming, and most of those programs are corrupted. And that's what we're going to be working on here. In future lives, we're going to start running through. I've done it before, and we're going to run through some of those topics again because they're really important. We have a lot of new followers, a lot of new listeners, and it's important to understand this stuff. It'll really help you in your life with your physical and your mental health, and it'll set you up for later on when we really start getting into. I always bring it in a little bit. But we're going to work on the physical and the mental health, healing all of the stuff that's in you that is destructive or trauma, this kind of stuff. clearing all that up, or at least giving you the tools to do it, and dabbling a little bit of spiritual in there. But eventually we're going to get into then moving hardcore into the spiritual part of consciousness, which is really necessary at some point. You can only go so far with the physical. And then it becomes a job that can only be completed by the divine. If you really want to go all the way, heal, be happy and healthy, become enlightened, understand, have mental clarity, express your spiritual self through this physical existence, which is what you came here to do. At some point, you got to step the game up. You got to go all the way to spiritual consciousness. So we'll get there too. But for now, we're going to take this, at least at first, a little bit slower and just kind of knock off some of these topics. So we talked about the ego, a very primitive part of the brain, but also necessary, which, by the way, has everything to do with the subconscious. And now we've kind of described what the subconscious mind is doing and how we've started introducing the conscious mind. So we'll work with that, but eventually we'll get into the spiritual consciousness. So if those of you, hey Sean, how's it going? The Philippines, fantastic. Welcome. So if any of this stuff resonates with you, follow the page or subscribe if you're on YouTube, and then join us here Wednesday nights at 6 or watch the replays. Now, if you have a question and you're in the live, you can put it in the comment box. A big Q helps me, but especially if there's a lot of people in that night. But if it's a replay, you can still ask a question in the comment box. I almost always see those. I'm supposed to get notifications of them, but I almost always see those, and I'll answer them. I'll answer you right back in that comment box, and then you should get notification that it's been answered. And if it's a really big thing, I may do it as the question of the week. A lot of times I do that. If it's not just a short little thing, I'll actually answer it at the beginning of the following week's live as the question of the week. And if it's so big I can't do that, we'll do a whole live on it. So that's kind of how we do things here. Anyway, it is time for the let me make sure I don't have any questions. Dwayne's going. Kim, a dented pan creates a dented loaf. Nice. That's how it is. So can you judge the pan for creating a dented? Can you judge the dented loaf for being dented because it was made in a dented pan? It doesn't make sense, does it? So when you see it that way, it really helps keep things in perspective. Lots of comments. That's good. Yeah, there's a lot of negative stuff going on right now, Dwayne. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It's part of that dark night of the soul. We'll get into that too. That's an interesting topic, and the fact that it's going on, and it's going to continue. I mean, it's not like if we don't talk about it this week, you're going to miss anything, because one thing about the dark night of the soul, it begins and ends when it decides it's going to begin and end. And everybody goes through at least a couple of these in their lives, but it's more rare for groups of people to go through them at the same time, more rare still for a nation to go through it at the same time, and an extremely rare event for the entire world to go through it at the same time, which is what's happening right now. And in a nutshell, it's when all hell breaks loose. It's not just one thing that's going wrong, it's everything going wrong. And that's really what a brief definition of what the dark night of the soul is. But again, I mean, it's all this stuff. It's always the same thing. Hold your spiritual center. Hold your spiritual center. So you see why spirituality is so important. I mean, at some point, the problems are only going to be solved on a spiritual level. There's some stuff you can do with your emotions and your emotional trauma. You can heal a lot of that stuff. You can eat a good diet and get some exercise. You can do a lot of stuff with your physical health. But at some point, you get to a plateau, and if you're really going to go all the way, you have to move into spiritual consciousness. And many of the problems that the world faces will only be solved on a spiritual level, which is why we spend a lot of time in conscious shifting talking about that very subject. It is the answer. It is the answer. Kim says, yeah, that ego messes with the minds of many and creates havoc. And it is the problem. I mean, it's necessary. It's a necessary thing that you have to have, but it does create a lot of problems. And that's specifically what the next couple of weeks or so, we're going to be talking about the problems that the ego causes and how to deal with that. And then we'll probably move into I might do a little bit on higher consciousness and then back to ego type stuff, but we'll work our way up to it. There's only so much you can do in a live, and if you don't understand some of the more basic stuff, it's hard to follow the more advanced stuff. You just get lost. Dwayne says, where would you begin to solve all the problems in the world? That is a good question. And the answer is, it always begins here with the individual, because we bought into a belief in separation. We believe that we're separated from God, and we believe that we're separated from each other. And that is actually aggravated by the viewpoint of the ego, because the ego sees things that way. In order to navigate space and time, which you have to do if you're going to live in this dimension, you have to be able to differentiate between past, present, future, and over here and over there. And that's necessary just to get along, even to communicate. To do anything in this realm, you have to be able to do that. So the ego is necessary. But if you identify with the ego and you start believing that reality is reality, that viewpoint is reality, and that your thoughts and emotions are who you are, that's where all the problems come in. And collectively, then we create this mess that we've created on the planet, where we have wars and poverty and starvation and racism and all this stuff. Nonsense, all made possible by the belief that we're separate. All the problems of the world, really, you could sum up that way. That they exist either entirely or to the extent that they do because of a belief system in which we believe that we're separate from God and from each other. Because if we didn't believe that, all of this would stop. And so we start with the individual, and we heal as much as we can on an individual basis. And when you get enough of that healed, where you're able to comprehend the oneness of things, when you're able to start connecting with people on a spiritual level, then that's where spirituality comes in. And this world is a creation of the collective consciousness of all of us. So if we individually heal all this stuff and evolve into a higher and higher and higher state of consciousness, eventually into spiritual consciousness, when we get to that point where we're expressing our spiritual essence, then that is the reality that we will create. And so it starts with the individual, and then as we heal ourselves, we will naturally move back towards that oneness. And when we do, this illusion will cease to exist, and in its place will be something that you would probably call heaven on earth. And that is the future, but it's not going to happen today, this week, or this year. There's a lot of work that has to be done to get there, but and there's a lot of different ways it could go up to that point. But that's it. So Where would I begin to solve all the problems? I would start with the individual and heal all of the emotional trauma, which is basically any situation that lacks love creates emotional trauma. Love is unconditional love, that is another way to describe God or spirit or higher consciousness. So it's always this return back to that which we are, that's which we came here to express. And it appears that we've forgotten. So we heal that first, and then collectively, the reality will shift altogether. That's how it's going to get done. And I can't argue with spirit. That's what I say. At some point, you just have to let spirit guide you. And I just got to the point where I don't even question it anymore. It doesn't, the stuff that goes on in the world, it's like it goes on. It has to go on. It's the opportunity for people to rise above it, and that kind of stuff. We could talk about all that, but I don't participate in very much of it. I influence it in the way that I can by holding my spiritual center, and then that is what I project to the world. And that's how the job is going to get done. It's not about convincing anybody of anything or passing any laws or electing any particular president or Supreme Court or whatever. Those things can help little things for a little bit of time, but at some point, all that's going to become unnecessary. It's only necessary because we're so screwed up, so we have to enact these laws to kind of hold some kind of civility, which we're not doing very good at that either. So that, but yeah, the individual, that's where I would start. And then collectively, we'll get the whole job done. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, the politics, sometimes people want to get real political. I won't. I stick to because it's so low level. It is like the bottom of the barrel. It is total egotism, which is not what we do here. It's not what we do here. What we do here is much higher consciousness than that. And, if you dive down into that, it's just going to turn into that. And everybody's going to they're either going to go away or they're going to get sucked into it. And we're going to have this big, like you see all over the world right now. It doesn't solve anything. Lower consciousness is not going to do anything other than create more lower consciousness. The only way you're going to change anything is to step up into higher consciousness. That's it. And so, ask away, but know that the answers are always going to come from that spiritual perspective. Richard, narcissistic personality disorder seems to be a corrupted program from childhood. Indeed. And you don't know how true that is. Especially the real bad ones. What you'll find is that they had absolutely horrific childhoods, every kind of abuse you can imagine, and then some that you can't. And that's what creates that. Yep. And we all have it, probably in much milder forms, hopefully. But yes. You're quite welcome, Nikki. Thank you for that. Hi, Tracy. Seems to trigger others when I say calm. Sometimes, yeah, that can happen. Eventually, people will just kind of go about their own way. It depends on how much noise you're making. Sometimes just being there and being the light, you'll get attacked in a sense, because people are threatened by that. It's kind of a weird thing. Here you are projecting love and you get hate in return, but that's actually quite common. You just ask Jesus about that one. Vidya, negative thoughts or mind mess sometimes doesn't allow us to live life in the present moment. Spiritual practice must. Yes, exactly. That's really what it is. In the spirit realm, which is the realm beyond the physical realm, If it's non-physical, I call it spirit, same thing. So there's no time. And so you don't have this problem of past, present, future. It just is what it is. It always has been, and it always will be. It's only when we descend into matter that we enter into this realm where there's time and space and things kind of get messed up, especially when we forget who and what we are and we start identifying with that. Exactly. Identifying with the ego. Use it as a tool. Don't be a tool of the ego. And Kim says we're all raised with the same light. Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to the healing circle. There we go. So everybody gather around and form a circle. Nice, comfortable, upright position, and join hands. Everybody in. Eyes and mouths gently closed, breathing through the nose down to the lower energy center just below the belly button. And then exhale back out through the nose. Another big deep breath all the way down. Breathe in the peace. And then exhale all tension. And again, breathe in peace. And exhale all troublesome thoughts, all worries, anxieties, depression, disease, all negativity. Let it all go out with the breath. And again, big deep breath. Breathe in the peace. And exhale any remaining tension. Okay, so for tonight, let's learn to work a little bit with your body's chi, your life force, your personal energy. So continue breathing on your own, but as you breathe in, subtly focus on pulling your personal energy, your chi, your life force, whatever you want to call it, from the base of your spine, up the back of your spine, into your skull, and all the way up to the crown. And then as you exhale, let the breath flow and the chi flow down from the crown all the way down the front of the spine to the base of the spine. So we inhale and we pull energy up from the base of the spine, up the back of the spine, all the way up to the crown, very top of the skull. And then as we exhale, let that energy flow down the front of the spine, all the way down to the base. And again, as we inhale, we pull energy from the base of the spine, up the back of the spine, all the way up into the skull, the very tippy top, the crown, we call that. And then exhale, allowing the energy to flow back down the front of the spine to the base. Again, continue breathing on your own, but now, with each breath, let your energy build. Let it get stronger and stronger and stronger as it flows. So what we're doing here is we're noticing our energy and we're identifying with our own life force. So with each breath, let the energy build. Just let it happen. You'll feel it. And if you don't, that's okay. Just visualize it and continue with the breathing. But just don't get in the way. Let it build and let it flow. When you're still, when you're meditating and you're still, it's easier to notice any movement. And that includes the energy within your body. With a still body and mind, you can be aware of your energy flow. You can actually get sensitive to it where you can feel it, and you'll learn what's normal, what's strong, what's weak. You'll learn when something's not right about it and what it is that's not right about it. These are all ways to learn to self-heal, or at least to diagnose, notice something that's wrong, expand your awareness. So with the still body in mind, you just learn to be aware of your energy flow. And you can visualize your energy as divine, bright, white light, because that's what it is. So if you're a visual type of person, maybe thinking about it that way will help you follow it through the body. So allow your energy to continue building and flow up the back of the spine into the crown when you inhale, and down the front of the spine back to the base as you exhale. And again, as you inhale, up the back of the spine all the way to the crown, and as you exhale, down the front of the spine back to the base. And one more time, as you inhale, up the back of the spine to the crown, and as you exhale, down the front of the spine to the base. Okay, now let that energy begin to flow beyond the spine, out the central nervous system to all parts of your body. So now you pull the energy up the spine to the crown and then back down to the base. But where's this energy coming from that's inside the spine? From the central nervous system, which is this network of nerves that goes out from the spine to all parts of the body. So as you inhale, you're pulling energy through your central nervous system, up your spine. And then as you exhale, energy from your spine out into your network of nerves, your central nervous system. And again, as you inhale, pulling energy in from all parts of the body, up the spine. And as you exhale, down the spine and out to all parts of your body. You feel it? One more time. As you inhale, pull energy in from all parts of your body, up your spine. And then as you exhale, let it flow down and out the spine to all parts of your body. Now, your body is actually a colony of trillions of cells. And as your energy comes into contact with each of these cells, you can visualize each cell lighting up with this bright white divine light. It's completely illuminating, like a Christmas bulb coming on the tree. And that's very close to the truth, because you are a divine light being. That's what you are. It's one way to describe spirit. It's one way to describe the energy that animates your body. And divine because of where it comes from, this non-physical realm into the physical realm, animating a physical body. So again, we breathe in and we pull energy in from all parts of the body, up the spine to the crown, back down and out to all parts of the body, and just see all the cells of the body lighting up until you're completely filled with this light. Your entire body filled with this divine light, where it's actually now extending beyond your body. It's like just this massive light that was within your body and now is beyond it. Let's just sit with that for about a minute and then we'll continue. Okay, so energy at this level is healing energy. And when all your cells are fully energized, the healing is complete. The spiritual energy will manifest physically. And that's what this exercise helps you to do, to realign all the cells that make up your body and your biological processes with your spiritual essence. So know that you're healed and give thanks for this healing. And so it is. All right, slowly open your eyes. And if there's no last minute questions, then we will call this a night. Let me close this out and open this back up. It just says, yes, identify with ego. That's the real problem. Awareness must increase. Well put. Well put. That's cool. Oops, it just jumped on me, of course. Susan says that every live, I feel such great energy from you all. Thank you all so much. Great live. Thank you. Great healing circle. I felt light and warm, almost like floating. You wonder, you hear about these yogis and sometimes you see pictures of them and they're like levitating and stuff. And I imagine it's probably from this sensation of floating that you get when you align yourself spiritually and you just shed all of this heavy stuff from this world. You feel lighter, and it really does feel like you're floating. May very well be where that came from. Dwayne says, how can I be versus how am I being? Exactly. So always question that, what is a higher version of myself? What is the highest version of myself that I can be in this moment? That's all you really need to focus on ever. If that's all you do, you'll be fine and you'll naturally evolve. Kim reminding everybody to drink a glass of water. And just like a physical workout, you do energy work. You want to stay hydrated. Good one, Dwayne. Him. God filled me with spirit. Now I know why I'm so animated. All right. And with that, we'll call it a night. So I honor the God within you. And remember, until the next time, the only way to bring about the greater good is to be the greater good. Good night.